So with that,
From here, we will randomly decide on a recent movie to review and critique in the weekly movie review show Movie Watchmen. The movie we are discussing tonight is this work, which has been released in Japan since May 31st.
Max Furiosa!
A spin-off depicting the story of warrior Furiosa in her youth as seen in the 2015 Mad Max Fury Road. General Dementis, also known as Musanin, also known as Dementis. A girl named Furiosa, who was deprived of her family by villains, grows into a warrior under her sister Queen Dementas and decides to walk the path of carnage for revenge and to return home. Playing Filser is actress Anya Taylor-Joy from Split, handling even in the corner, and the role of Dementas is played by Chris Hemsworth from the Mighty Thor series. He was responsible for directing and scripting, basically the creator of everything. This series is somewhat a collective work, but still it ties everything together, creating a unique worldview. So we received a monitoring report email from a listener who watched Matt Marks' video.
Thank you for
Thank you
watching.
so much, everyone. The amount of emails is, as expected, it is the most this year. Well, I always say this, but if you call yourself a movie lover, you can't miss this one. That's how it is this year, the most ever. But the ratio of pros and cons is about 70% positive. Surprisingly well received. Hey, how was it again, during Death Road? What was the ratio back then? At that time, was it a job for a magazine? Maybe my memory is a bit fuzzy. Even back then,
Oh, there were people saying all sorts of things.
In the end, it's just that it's been recorded as a classic by many people.
But what are the main compliments?
Mad Max. Fury Road is perfect, Chris, don't you think?
Mrs. portrayal of the character Dementas was outstanding.
I also like to have new action scenes with fresh ideas. However, it's undeniable that if you were expecting something on the level of the previous work, it wasn't that meaningful. It's long and drags on. It's definitely the longest in the Mad Max series.
Just a small part of the bus.
Continuing on, let's introduce everyone. Even on the radio, Halloween.
In my show comment, I saw Sephiroth in the Dolby Cinema remastered version. I happened to win that gacha last week. The Dolby Cinema version, sorry, but which version did you all get? Please count it as highly praised. In other words, I thought it was a wonderful movie that fully played the role of a prequel. This work can be viewed from various perspectives, so I would like to focus my impressions on Furiosa and the antagonist Dementas this time. These two often depict a cooperative relationship, which is a structure from classic films where there is a side seeking revenge and a side being avenged. Regarding each other's backgrounds, both have had decisive personality changes in their lives. There might be events where you do something and it might be related to your own mutimons. I can't verify how similar our situations are, but you can enjoy comparing the two of us. This is close to the idea often seen in films like Byzantine and Paul Schrader's movies, where a protagonist forgiving or condemning others directly correlates with their own salvation and punishment. In other words, the final budget for fuel.
The mentors are also very... Makes sense. And it's not about killing, because of
I
being
will not
killed,
forgive.
but about one's own wavering
Long
feelings.
and important scene.
The ending they showed was satisfying. Also, only the two of them share a trick
From
about
the
the
adopted
era
child
of time
related
lending.
to Filios since childhood.
You can see changes because it depicts growth until reaching adulthood. You could feel the movement of life within the few years for the Dementors as well.
Meanwhile, other
doesn't
characters
seem to show much growth in appearance. And
The
movie...
timelines of the viewer's body, Furiosa Dementa's timeline, and other characters' timelines are actually all different.
The opinion of the Halloween sacrifice was very interesting.
For this too, just a bit...
Just one part.
All right, I'm going to cover the highlights. Thank you as always, Marmalade Sun. I watched it at Dolby Cinema. The excellent sequel has a precise understanding of the previous work and its related works.
Spirit becomes
Maybe I put too much into the
but
decision.
this work is also
regarding our own charm and features.
I think it became a work through
consideration
reinterpretation and reconstruction.
Overall, compared to the previous works, this one has fewer flashy heroic scenes or moments that leave a lasting impression. And after finishing it, you're left with a sense of emptiness and melancholy. That's right, the extreme loneliness after the festival culminates in a long conversation between the two characters at the end. Instead of knocking out Dementors to please the audience, it vividly shows Mr. Satoru Furiosa's anguish that even after revenge, what was lost does not return. Am I here? As in the previous work, raising the audience would end up endorsing a cycle of violence, as George Miller himself seems to suggest through his film. That being said, various comments have been written, and because this work has a different flavor from the previous one, those expecting something like Fury Road might find it different from what they imagined. As a spin-off work, we don't just repeat the same thing. I feel a very sincere attitude in thinking about the meaning of weaving around here as a marker too.
Well, so
About the festival?
The festival is so after this, the festival is after this. The
It's
festival
starting
is
soon, so it feels like a coming up next kind of thing. But the tension of this work, you know.
Of course, you could say that what
maybe
it's
it's
trying
natural.
to convey is different.
And also as usual, rainbow chair sun again.
The meaning is, I don't think this was meant to be read. It's too
Good
long.
job, splendid.
This is a long and thorough critique
Thank you
that
very
I
much.
cannot read entirely, but
Well,
Mr.
it's just
Mocha
like
points
that.
out the spatial aspects of the work.
Especially regarding vertical
This time
movement.
it's depicted quite well. Montas on that movement, or rather that
I
dynamic.
also thought that was a distinct feature this time, and Rainbow Chair Sun added a lot of interpretative meaning to it, but I simply find it purely interesting as an action structure. Som da cui Arande kan lutos guantes vanin chu algoritmatische semester Bryson ju ang mantena. The previous work tried to avoid unnecessary elements, but this one feels a bit clumsy by deliberately explaining them. Well, that's
The
true.
previous work is Soyu City. Did Japan know about it too?
That sync.
well, you could say it's redundant, right? Now I understand everything.
So, of course, writing about it like that might be a bit silly. Honestly, I thought the scene where Max and Busiki characters are pointlessly inserted watching from the hill was lame. What about the consistency with the information coming from other sources? Some say it's okay because it's oral tradition, but if that's the case, then stop making it directly connected to the Fury Road at the end and make it ambiguous whether it connects or not. I wanted it to end differently, like they could have made some kind of deal. So do you feel that way? Some people say it's wrong to expect the same thing from George Miller's previous work, but given how great the movie is, it's natural to have expectations. I think the biggest flaw of this movie is that it is a prequel to Fury Road, hence why Fury Road is so iconic in film history. Setting out, it's already an immortal monument, and it's hard to surpass. That's definitely true. I think they understand, so I kind of feel like this is how it is. I get it, though it might be a bit unnecessary, but yeah, that's true. Also, well, that's how it is. Yodobashi Endo-san also had a rather harsh opinion, basically saying it was not interesting at all.
While listening to various talks.
So, we talked and said things
You're
like,
thinking
oh,
that,
I
right?
see. But at first glance, there were lots of things I couldn't understand or found
How
uninteresting.
about it? Like, there are also people like this.
Yes.
After
Of
work like that, it's no surprise.
With this variation, I think there are many ways to feel
I think
things.
it makes sense, right?
All right, thank you, everyone.
Oh, mate. What should I do?
Unusually, not much
I
paper.
don't want to hear
This
it.
is something where the sooner, the better.
I just wanted to take a quick look, so I came by without making an appointment. This is Bart 9's Dolby Cinema and the Grand Cinema.
Tsuyama Sunshine, Ikebukuro's IMAX Laser GT, and T-Joy Prince Shinagawa's...
Oh, mechanical issues,
For
Phil,
Japanese.
right?
Here we go.
These work. By the way, we'll also talk about the screening methods. It wasn't filmed with an IMAX camera, so the whole film is in the regular CinemaScope size of 2.39.1.
well, of course, IMAX too.
That's fine.
Thinking about whether it's crowded or not, and all that.
The sound and visuals are incredible, and I personally recommend the Dolby Cinema in Tokyo, which is relatively less crowded. I think Dolby Cinema is perfect for this movie. Actually, on the contrary.
On that big IMAX screen, the top and bottom parts end up being quite
Oh,
dark,
what a waste.
which kind of affects the
It was
feeling.
kanji.
Also, Japanese machines too.
It was perfect.
Right?
The quality was perfect. You know, that unique sense of language and things like boy, well, if I put it in Japanese.
I've been holding back and all, and I think it was quite a challenge. Prisembus plays the villain Dementas this time, who has a uniquely annoying speech tone that mixes an old man horse racing commentary and seagulls.
Ladies and gentlemen,
It seems
the
strangely
hair
like,
noise is annoying, like that tone.
Also, quite a few leftovers from Australia.
I guess it's included.
Well, of course, they'll trace that.
Wasn't there. So I think you should watch the language version at least once.
By the way...
The previous work, Mad Max Fury Road. I'm covering this movie in my so-called corner on June 27th, 2015.
Just like this for a
even
bit.
though this was an era without
A
transcriptions.
lot of people have forgotten about that theatre.
Thank you for watching.
I think there are many, but not really.
Quite a few.
Also, the
various
screening of that art
I finally remembered by looking at my old notes
but 3D screenings were mainly the focus.
It's like this. So anyways, it's the latest in the Mad Max series after 9 years, but rather a spin-off that serves as a prequel to its predecessor, Fury Road. It's one of those kinds of films, but again, the previous film, Mad Max Fury Road, was such a historically great masterpiece that it was on a different level. It's definitely one of the greatest films of the 21st century, if not the greatest in the 21st century.
It's the best movie. For now, that's what I think.
I always describe these as movies about phenomena or movies of the future.
But on the surface, it has been stripped down to the simplest possible story, leaving only what is necessary.
While being dead.
Its very fundamental and purely cinematic storytelling is abundantly rich.
Action.
Art, costumes, cinematography, sound, and editing all come together to
There
create.
are many charming characters and an original
For example, that group of people called the War
It's a job.
Boys.
It's a system.
Those poor children, I mean, but incredibly charming.
or something
Like that, or the final thing that emerges from this, from the feudal governing structure. It depicts people trying to reclaim a truly human world with, dare I say, a feminist message. Some, including that. The Mad Max series has already made at least 2 revolutionary impacts on film history and pop culture. I think you could say that.
No way. A new
It's been
release
17
of 20.
years since the last project, and to make another significant leap in film history, it's truly a miracle.
What kind of series or movie can do
I
that?
would say there hasn't been a single successful attempt.
So, it's unusually exceptional for an action
How should I put
movie.
it? It's highly acclaimed, including the Academy Awards and other movie
However,
awards.
in the end, what was
Despite
tanned
winning
was
technical awards, Charlize Theron, who played Furiosa, wasn't even nominated, which is honestly
This is
just
really permeating.
really, you
I
know.
still find it completely
I would
odd
be happy if you could
and
join me.
unacceptable.
Also, the Best Picture award is in the spotlight that year.
the spotlight was faulty. Had to mention it.
There's no way it'll be normal.
Oh, that thing. Yes. And how this miracle, which was out of the ordinary, became possible. Shita no Shon was published by Takashobo. There is a making of report. Mad Max Fury Road. This Amazon Audible exclusive podcast by Jutamaru Fumuro, recorded last year on April 26th during the 3rd episode, where I read aloud quite passionately. It's unbelievably interesting, so I highly recommend it. Also, the entire Mad Max series is out of the ordinary in the first place. It's made with an out-of-the-box approach. Speaking of which, this also came out from Takeshobo. It features George Miller and the birth of the Mad Max series, which also has a legend. This is from the current publisher, making book with many illustrations like Legend of Mad Max.
Especially the first.
But it's just a complete mess. Really unbelievable. The episodes are really interesting, so I highly recommend them. Also, sorry, but I have one more recommended reading, the prequel to Fury Road. For example, I know what this she was in I first time I need to see it. How did Queen Amuro rise to that position and establish that governance system? That's the story. For instance, just before Furiosa takes action in Fury Road, how were those women treated during the birth of her sister? This comic version of Mad Max Fury Road, which includes stories that elaborate more on the details, is under the category of graphic
From a
novels,
place called Shikafika
appearing
novels.
as Kaichiro Yanagishita.
Just like Italy's digital world.
For a deeper understanding of...
Feels like a recommendation.
And of course, continuing from the previous work, Mr. Ginty Kobayashi and...
Mr. Yutaro Yorisi Yutaro Ichikawa, also known as Mr. Rikyo Ichikawa, wrote a lot of detailed scripts for this theatrical version as well.
Already?
Absolutely must fight for this. The content is extremely dense and very educational, so you definitely should buy the pamphlet. So, sorry for going on about the material for so long. But anyway, the previous work, Fury Road, has an extraordinary history.
Really clear and fast this
It's understood
time.
that Yuru-sama is a prerequisite.
In the first place, through general story and setting of Ikari's
Already getting
digital
rejected?
road, already existed almost completely.
As I mentioned earlier, how digital videos of Rage are stripped down to the bare minimum in terms of story, it might be good to focus on character, setting, action, and visual elements. Or from those unique expressions, it naturally emerges, that's how it's made. să ziceți se zavani, on the other hand, se sicinios, though the setting and episodes that provide the basis for these are meticulously crafted. It's something like that. Part of it is in the comics we mentioned earlier. To go further, this time Mr. Firu originally planned to release the animation work at the same time as Fury Road. Earlier, as I mentioned in the theater pamphlet, that director, Mahiro Maeda, who worked on Shin Evangelion, had actually advanced that work quite significantly. This is mainly an interview with Mahiro Maeda, known for his work with Hideaki Anno.
boss. Right, this interview is amazing, but according to this, the creation is very...
Oh, 24.
Well, there are several elements, and although I will try not to get too specific within this time, that's about it. The various pieces like, that's Shumkon Chendi Muashe in Hiroshio with storyboards and design sketches from around 2008 to 2009.
It's already written. It already exists. That's basically it. Anyway, it was a valuable
just by having this, truly this, I think it's amazing. The materials themselves are incredible, but of course the enormous success of Fury Road is impressive in terms of box office as well.
Of course, it was also a success industrially.
More than just industrially.
As expected, the overwhelming response from the audience.
Thanks to the support and evaluation, it really came true. It's a budget spin-off movie. As I have been saying, it is a prequel and spin-off to Rage of the Death Rosen.
First and foremost,
it's definitely a work worth considering, no doubt about it.
By the way, with Furio, and also another...
Wasteland, this one is Max Muck. Well,
another one focused on
There
Kai.
will be a spin-off episode.
This will be made depending on Mr. Filio's performance.
So, it means the spin-off based on this road is a definite
So
thing.
even if you haven't seen any of the Mad Max series and start from this work, you can understand and enjoy this work.
I don't think there will be any
However,
issues.
after this, it's really Honmaru Taru and Death Row. George Miller himself will be saying, yeah, this leads to Mad Max Fury Road. That's something he will strongly emphasize.
It's made in such a way that this work is now. So if Digital Road is a masterpiece,
It's not about surpassing or not surpassing that. No. It's all about the Death Road.
I'll do it.
You will surpass it. Right?
And there isn't.
If you don't make a Death Road, then aiming to surpass Death Road is what it
it's
means.
pointless in the first place. When you look at it, that masterpiece Death Road becomes even more rich, emotional, and the words are extremely interesting, like a spin-off. I think it's a worthy work.
Would you Can we first compare it to Death Road?
Good morning.
First, what do you think? So
If
what?
it's used, it's good.
Do you benefit?
I think you did
you would
the
absolutely
same
complain,
thing, didn't you?
Of course, the basic world setting is an extension of Death Road. For example, the basic look design
this
method.
part makes me feel like I'm really watching Mad Max.
This is where I feel
At
it.
key points, there's fast forwarding or frame dropping, a bit surreal, super
You
detailed.
can see the movement, right?
You always include that, right? At the top of your head. When I see that, I think of Mad
It
Max.
gives a sense of that editing style. Of course, that's true. That's true. And the sharp camera work with angles plays just above the ground, which is a trademark of the Mad Max series. Well, it goes without saying that it's highly praised. Even work continues. And it's an homage that resonates with various elements from the past 4 works. I'll explain, but I think that also enhances the mythological feel unique to this book series. Anyway, this is an extended version of Fury Road. But on the other hand, at the same time, it's totally different from the Death Road. Moreover, it's something that hasn't been done at all in the previous Mad Max series. It also has a narrative style that was not there before, and that might indeed be the unique charm of this delinquency. I think so. Therefore, here I will mainly focus on fresh points that are different from or evolved from before. Philorth's unique Phil-Edge stamp points are organized into about 5 key points. That's what I would like to say. First point, one of the Mad Max series. One fresh point unique to Mr. Furious. From the second movie onwards, the Mad Max series was consciously the mythology and legends that are reflected upon by the stories that survived into the future are being packaged as a whole. Like that's like that boy who survived is talking about the man I met when I was little.
It is being told from the village's perspective.
Those kinds of packages too. Exactly that kind of storytelling, those myths and legends. Why do people have myths and legends? George Miller directed and delved into the story theory of whether to maintain the narrative even with new elements. It was a very philosophical story, but putting that aside,
If you insert Arabian Nights during Death Road, this is what happens.
In a very real
It's really easy to see, isn't it? It's like my own version of Arabian
That's
Nights.
how it feels.
concrete.
This time the filth is more defined.
The universal essence of human history, in other words, human history, things that humanity has repeated, things that humans have done repeatedly as part of their nature, become stories and legends, and that's included in this movie
Yes,
too.
the universality of
The
human
essence
history.
condensed in myths, legends, fairy tales, or prefaces.
Such a narrative emerges.
It's emphasized.
more clearly than ever before.
Well, to begin with, then.
Everything is contained within the narrative of the history man, the storyteller.
To be
as a
continued.
whole structure.
Streamer, living in a place like this, in a world like this, don't fall into madness. Don't go mad. It starts with the question of what people should do.
This area is
I'm
systematic.
excited about the reservation.
For example, the women from Death Road, after they escaped, their younger sister.
That older woman who tries to fire a shotgun at the person, that's history man with rhythm all over his body. The narrative pages and the intervals repeat in this way, so the overall structure and the touch of the screen are just like Death Road. It feels a bit more lifted from reality, with a slightly stronger fantastical atmosphere this time. For example, the awkward place of birth that appears at the beginning is referred to as the Greenland. This road is about trying to return there, the Greenland. Ah, so this is what it was like. You know, mostly, it's unlike Mad Max, right? You could say that. The rich greenery and the blue clothing suggest an abundant water source. The blue outfit is gorgeous. Unless there is a special reason, Mirror never wears blue clothes. But
Everyone is wearing blue, so
It means rich.
it makes you feel it.
This
Of course, as it is.
Like a
This is not an explanation, but rather a depiction of the system of this land, or rather, an extremely ecological cycle of life. So, it's working, but it's still a bit sluggish anyway.
It's pretty good for a Mad Max
Your
world.
mythical ideals
sutra,
in this
right?
place.
It feels like the world of Mad Max, like, oh, there it is. By the way, this Greenland is altered and this.
There's green blood in that mature.
From above, looking at the valley where it ran on the ground and the last part of the valley.
So, I think the standing tree is a
But, well, I won't say much about it, and other things, googly eyes.
When the sun is on, the camera zooms in on this spot. It's the first time in Mad Max history that the setting is explicitly stated to be Australia. It was always implied before, but well, it's in Australia, right? As you go there, it shows that it's Australia. The sound of the didgeridoo, an instrument of the Australian Aboriginal people, is added. It starts to blend with a bass. In other words, it's like declaring that Mad Max is an Australian myth. We haven't delved this deeply before. Additionally, each episode and setting use information based on Homer's Greek mythology, such as Odysseus, Sire, Alililas, and Saias, and Ilias. It's filled with homages to George, you know? Well, those who have seen it would know. It's really slow.
Trojan horse scenario is emerging.
Being dragged.
That character who dies.
Ilias.
The final development or
That's
something.
how Greeks are generally.
It's sprinkled with homages like the epics of Beth and Homer. And for example, Chris Hemsworth, Angel M's as Angel Dementus. This Dylan is just close to Maximus, the dictator of the kingdom of the planet of the apes. So, he must seeming she was there is in the Swiss Meshjo.
I admire the Roman Empire. I intentionally embody the Roman Empire.
So the Mantas is like an ancient fantasist with a Ben-Hur styled chariot-like bike.
Definitely looks inconvenient,
It's
doesn't
like-
it?
It's mentioned.
It's
But,
like the history of the Roman Empire.
It would have been nice if it was passed
Anyway,
on a little.
The history of mankind itself
Myth
is
and legend.
The whole thing was designed to echo like a rhythm, quite intentionally. And this is a bit of a different story. But George Miller really has a deep respect for Akira Kurosawa.
This time I thought
In
again
the last
that-
episode, there was a sudden homage scene to the Seven Samurai. I said, I'm going for a bit. And then I came back.
just because I got.
I did the rapidly increasing homage scene, but originally I...
Finally, this time, I truly think
spoiler alert.
the Max too.
From Stia.
It kind of has a samurai-like structure, doesn't it?
It's
To begin with.
happening.
Because of the
It
resources.
feels like an armored diner, you know? Basically, the horse tribe, I guess the tribe comes attacking, So, quite weak farmers, I guess, they are protected, and so it's a situation where they move like samurai, and in the end they won.
I said it's not.
This area.
The samurai with 7
Isn't that the
strings.
feeling?
Something like that.
Yeah, whatever. That's that crazy
So far,
homage.
it was there. But this time, even Phil Rosamond is clearly seen as a monster bomolju. Along the way,
Yes, dang.
it's at the place
yes.
Batan is going to. Well, there's also an obvious homage to your
Seeing that, oh, this story, by the way, as it goes towards the end, the opposing organizations clash and wear each other out. They exhaust themselves, and our goal becomes easier to disrupt. This is completely unprepared.
That's the feeling I
Probably
get.
for George Mirai, Kurosawa's works also in film
Because it's
history.
like a myth. It includes Western movie theaters.
Without
as well.
hesitation, I took the board to save.
You could say it's a kind of that, right?
Well, it's also
Anyway,
the
The
mythology of film history.
With that feeling.
Death Road is just like
Yeah.
that.
It's a non-stop story for 3 days, and in a way it's designed to tell everything through purely physical action. In unlike before, it's a story spanning 15 years divided into 5 chapters. It's the first time for such chapter segmentation. It has a name, divided into 5 chapters, clearly handed down as a legend of a divine horse and an early stage legend. This delinquency adheres more to a classical story format. Here, well, this is a completely different place, right? Hiroyon's second fresh point. The previous work, Death Road, has been changed to sumo wrestling, just like the past works. We were scheduled to shoot on location in Aria, but after the record-breaking rain, when I went, the desert had turned into a field of flowers. Reluctantly, they filmed this Death Road in Namibia, Africa. Simon Dugan, the cinematographer listed in the pamphlet. According to that statement, Namibia is always foggy at all locations, and...
Well then, I get it. So, in that case, I don't care
Even
anymore.
though it's supposed to be the Kedah Plain Desert.
Strangely unpredictable
I
feeling.
thought it might be the unique feel of Death Road, but on the other hand, Australia's Simon Nagar said in the same pamphlet interview, it's endless. For that reason, the contrast is stronger, making the video look more solid. That's what gives Philo's work its unique flavor. Alright, you see, I'll drink...
The look is a bit
the
different.
terrain is slightly different too. And those unique weather and terrain features of Australia, well, I think it's because of that. I believe they made use of that. But this time, well, taking advantage of the clear desert space, precisely the distance, action, and suspension that make use of height differences. This is presented in a variety of ways in the first part, creating an incredible cinematic excitement, you know, giving a clear view of everything. Action and suspense centered around distance and elevation. I'll just say it. It's very Western-like. Interesting, that is to say, the fundamental excitement of action movies. Like, one of these points is being pursued, or rather approached closely. For example, Ton-san is known to the relentless pursuit to retrieve the kidnapped girl, Furiosa, at the very beginning. The woman, Mary Jawa, you know, she plays the ex-girlfriend of Charlie Fry, who was played by Glenn Powell, who we covered in this segment recently from The Pretender in
Mr.
Love.
Fraser.
Hey, well, Australians are indeed like that. But Mr. Charlie Fraser.
Anyway, Charlie Fraser's portrayal of Mary Java is just too cool. It's like the feeling you get when you watch episode 1 for the first time. This is what it was like in the heyday. Like, haha, this is what it was like to be the woman of the Iron Horse in its prime. For example, using the enemy's bike, which was defeated, and reassembling it on the spot. In short, that world uses everything at its disposal. This is the ironclad rule of that world. The ironclad rule is that her abilities are incredibly high, which you can see right away. I've never seen anything like that. Catching up and swapping tires and parts like that, and it looks so cool. Well, anyway, that's it.
This girl is
Tracking down those kidnapping bikers with the mic overall?
Using the other advantages that have become apparent. Cutting through like One-san, and then beyond One-san. While the villains are escaping, we're resisting with all our might. From that high place, you can see Dementas' tent on the right side. The spatial tension created by the positional relationships, distance to the target, and the topographical elevations. This is exactly what I'd call a highly cinematic action suspense, overflowing with, how should I put it?
Actually, just watching a movie makes me
It
happy.
felt like that, you know, like over there. Also, the major highlight is mostly killed by the use of height differences and distance in a space with good visibility. I think so, everyone. Please apply it to yourself. It's roughly done that way. So basically, it's a chase on flat land with polecats coming from above during the chase. The death road is primarily fought on flat terrain, although sometimes the vocal boys and the Yamahara clan attack from higher ground using those fall catches.
Was not seen
I
much.
can definitely say without a doubt that it's the pursuit of pure cinematic showmanship unique to the director of this work. This kind of thing, each one of them, you don't see this very often. He's such a guy, you know? See you in some... Heroes third fresh point, we're running out of time, let's keep going. The length of the time span and the changes in the characters, especially the major transformations of the protagonist Furiosa, and the next villain Dementas as mentioned in the email earlier. Yes, first of all, it's clumsiness. Jack Hero portrays young Alira Brown, while Anya Taylor-Joy plays her grown-up version, Asante Enoshio. It's normal in movies for them to switch quickly when time jumps. There's matter of switching in the movie, but in this work, as was so nasty,
like
not here. Using AI technology for everything, roughly speaking. Adding more Anya Taylor-Joy elements to Alira Brown's face. Taylor-Joy
gradually reduced the elements of Alira Brown added to Johnny's face of Anya in that way.
Because of course, the process of hiding half of the face and only showing the eyes is also reduced quite a bit. Using the sense of both, they express the change and growth of the character named Filcher. This is a type I haven't really seen much of before.
That was quite an expression. It felt really...
When? The point is, Dementor is the most introspective villain in the Mad Max world.
Complex, internal complexity.
I think it's fair to say this person is very interesting, a very attractive character. It seems in the chaos of the world's collapse, starting with his daughter and family, getting killed. Killed or whatever. Lost very tragically.
Become stronger at the end of convenience. Become stronger at the end of despair.
It has become like this.
In other words, this guy is also Max Rokand-Ansky in the making.
Max could have been that kind of person.
From the beginning.
People who hold such relevant things, which it seems there are limits as a group leader or person in power. Like a little sister, I can't and won't manage everything systematically.
So it's like they're not managing it properly. Anyway, it seems they argued about the birth of the potato.
Feels
To talk about Yaku Yaku, you often see it often. I understand it well. So, this is some suicides who shot and so it makes a sound. And you can manage it properly.
Lots of things.
It's important to understand that my younger sister was born.
Let's go with Sudan after all.
Sure thing.
But for that, it's not very cute, really.
The birth of my sister is not cute. To sum up, that's like modern-day capitalists. That's the feeling, right? It's almost like that nuance with company people. They meant us after all. He's just there, without any abilities or motivation. Even he admits he's overwhelmed by this enormous power, as he says in his lines. Saying they're bored, no? Something like that, you know.
That they are just exhausted.
This is a unique, fresh point of Mr. Filio. I really like the character Dementos.
Became a character. Isn't it okay to just read your favorite character this much? Fresh point number 4 of Noodles. I wonder if there was ever anyone like that in Furiosa. That character. Well, it's Captain Jack with his polite speech.
Hey, sustained action during the 15-minute midsection battle between Boat Tank and Glider Squad, of course, is also an idea. I think it's really amazing. Not just this scene,
it's
but
amazing, just like that in this one
there
shot.
were a lot of shots where something seems to happen. Like, seriously. There are a lot of things I feel like saying, but this is undoubtedly the biggest highlight. It's the biggest highlight for Achibuns and at the same time for Furiosa and her Jack.
It's not that they got to know each other for the first time.
In one's line,
through
he
words.
asks for Mom's help to defeat the enemy.
Exactly that process will continue.
That thing.
Every time they did something like dun-dun to each other and then met face-to-face with a Dan, there was a pause again and
It's
again.
extremely good. But unbelievable.
For the two of them to reach true trust, to become trustworthy people.
The process of this battle perfectly matches what you see in pro wrestling.
The action, psychology, characters, everything came together as one, exactly like Mad Max George Miller's. This character somehow has a scent of Max Rokatansky. Well, in terms of appearance too. In this way, especially the death road is really...
Considering the
Yuga-san, who is very delicate, says thinking about it brought her to tears. When you meet Max again and temporarily become buddies, Filio-san must have Jack in his mind. there are people who are worthy of a diagnosis. Yeah, that's what it means. According to the Internet Movie Database, Mr. Angelton-Berg from Orson Welles' Mank, well, more like Tom Burke.
Clearly a male-female relationship.
It was supposed to be like a game. But no, the important thing here is that this relationship is on hold. This is absolutely correct. A fresh point like Mr. Philo, then in the end, a large crowd. I say, in terms of each character's desperate actions to survive, they are all the same. Each character's desperate actions to survive are the same in that sense. Acting for survival.
But in that extreme situation...
The most important thing is how to
George
behave.
Miller always says in interviews, I want to express
Mad Max
myself.
Saga.
The common point
So what was it?
is the extreme point of survival.
When you plan to do this to your eyes.
What to do, right? This work deeply explores this theme and its ensemble.
There hasn't been a series like this before.
For example,
For example, the Greenland.
Similarly sustainable systems, like the Greenland, are also ecological.
It looks like they are making a circulation system.
So
and it seems like
that upper
Shimoda
edge
is in charge.
Basically, saxophone.
It comes through labor
The
and
difference
such.
of standing.
Both are desperately trying to survive and create a sustainable system, but which one will our society choose?
There are also some toilets being used.
If it's just about living by eating, then describing
Isn't
those
that what they
people
say this time?
underground.
That kind of way of living, you know?
Please
if
try
it's just
eating
about
it.
surviving, then of course there's that way of living. If you're desperate, you might do things like that. Like that, you might do it because it's the easiest way. But you know... Or, of course, I was subjected to so much violence and despair that I became violent myself.
Well, to the world. Becoming someone who takes revenge on the world, like Dementas. That person is enraged taking revenge on the world. At least take a Rita-like action to improve the world in that situation.
Some people try to connect things creatively. There are also people like Jack.
Oh, what's up?
It's about living, right? And that's the last one. Everyone is saying that it was planned and was in the anime version, that last one. It might sound pretentious, but the nature of revenge, as a conclusion to this kind of revenge story, is somewhat tight.
The ultimate answer is not to kill or forgive, but to live and let live,
Even without...
as mentioned on the Shemale earlier.
So it's really about connecting, right?
And so, what I'm trying to say about the ending is that it makes me think about my area of interest. I can't help but keep considering it because it's the same as my area of interest. And you guys agreed.
I think this legend ends with leaving us with the question of whether it can be
Everything happening in history is actually a metaphor for what's really happening in reality.
All the characters can be replaced as real-world metaverses.
That's our real
But as for the experts,
within it.
It's a story about how you all live, I think, was saying well, detail and characters and developments. This was good. This is After School Podcast with Misato Ugaki, our respected formal language leader, and we will have
to
a
have
chat.
Wasteland made, at least Japan would have to be a big hit. After all, you know, I've never seen anything like
That
this.
kind of
Even
idea.
now, doing this many things is quite a miracle, March, isn't it? Absolutely, absolutely.
you
If
see-
this movie doesn't make history, what have
You
done
absolutely
this year?
must watch Mad Max Fury Road in the theater.
All right. Next week on Thursday, June 20th, we will announce the 9 nominated movies. The first nominee is Tomimichi Aonokuro.
The snake did his own self-remake. Whoa, that's different.
Let's see what's next after what we just did.
Blue is fine. The third one is Challengers. The fourth is Drive Away Dolls. And the fifth is Iseon-san in Akoshi-san Iseon Kao no Son Sozomar. Sixth from the anime Karagai Juzo no Takagi-san Samushin. Nushila Pale Nushiro Kaone. Sixth confession. Seventh
Thank you
confession.
for watching.
The eighth single area. Continuing with the dangerous data that has returned. And the final candidate is the listener capsule. From my name is Ino Sigozi Semin Siefan not saying that's Lucasan Chopin and also Lishimasom. And next week the movie I want Tamarsan to watch is the new film by Dirty Relay called Abaran. Dirty Relay is again produced
Thank you for the multiple suggestions received from multiple people. By the way, I've already seen it a bit earlier.
Yes, for supporting Palestine, we are adding one more spin. We will pay an extra 10,000 yen for,
There's no
thank you for watching.
Driver
Let's go to the
way.
solo video shot only at the Doll's performance, the E3 performance, one more time. Con Colelin.
What? Oh, the listeners have come.
Huh.
Oh,
What, something
is
like
there?
that?
Okay.
It's been a while, Director Iria.
Hiroshi. I have a feeling of wanting to support. So I'll
Don't
say
need
it
it,
first.
need it.
Director's
I
mindset.
think it's the best masterpiece.
Okay, got it.
Yes. Please, everyone, talk about that.
So,
we are waiting for
basically-
reviews from people who have seen this movie. We are also looking for movies you want us to review. Oh, but I'm sorry, don't be influenced by my opinion. Negative opinions are totally fine. Excuse me, please. Sorry,
This is
go.
bad.
If you are
Not
selected
good.
for the actual slot, we will present you with 2,000 yen in cash. The address is either utamaru@tvs.zo Toshio JP or utamaru@tvs.zo Toshio JP. Please send it on today's, it's a Furiosa table, but I've properly made my own table. It's an after-school podcast, though. Spoiler alert. Hey, I'm going home.
Spoiler alert. Well, actually...
After school,
Yes,
Mr.
that's
Iwasaki
nice.
will be doing a spoiler-filled botchcast, so please check it out. This has been the weekly movie botch review.